Hello, everyone. This is Beth Coughlin. Welcome to Spirit Share, where we talk about all things spirit. It is my hope that these spirit shares awaken your wisdom within, the limitless soul that you are. Hello, thank you for joining me for today's Spirit Share. Today's Spirit Share is fun. It's about following your heart or following your truth. And how do we know when we are aligned with that awareness that we are following the truth of who we are? And a lot of that, a lot of us have those moments in life where we wonder this or we question this, and we seek out help from other people to help define where we are and where we're going and all of that. And then when we get further along, we look back and we can say, whoa, we had these pivotal moments in our life where we made certain decisions, and we can see how everything lines up. So sometimes in the moment we're not always sure, but when you look back, you can see how everything had a place to get you to where you are now. And for me, one of those great pivotal moments of following my heart and following my next right step, so to speak, people have phrased it like that, was back in 2014 is when it actually started. And it's when I followed a pigeon to Italy. It's sort of what I've always said is my kind of pivotal moment, my awakening. And it all started with a great quest that I have always had for many years to find my Nana's family and cousins in Italy. When I was growing up, my Nana was such a great influence in my life. She was more than a Nana. She was like my best friend. She was just someone I really admired. She had great strength and character, and she would never let anyone bully her or tell her what to do. She just had an amazing power about her. She was very empowered, and this was in the 70s and 80s when, it wasn't as common to see that kind of thing. And she was divorced, and she was widowed, and she was running her own life, and she wouldn't let anyone tell her what to do. In fact, she had a saying that she would say, which is, I won't tell you what to do, but I'll tell you what I'll put up with. Well, when I was going into my first year of college after I graduated from high school, she passed away of multiple myeloma. And it was a horrible time for me because I didn't know how I was going to live or survive without my person, my rock, the person who I would turn to, who would sort out my life for me, that would tell me the next step. We're talking about these next steps. And I really go into great detail of this on my website. I have an essay called Opening the Doorway to Awareness and Finding Family that you can read my actual steps and story that I take with this pigeon. This talk is sort of like a mishmash of a couple of things, but there are a few essays on there that are kind of more the lengthier versions of what I'm going to talk about. But to needless to say, I never lost sight of thinking about my Nana. I never lost sight of wondering if she was watching over me. And I always, as a child, she had told me when I was very little that she was very psychic and could see and feel and hear things. And she told me that I had all these same qualities. And as a kid growing up, I knew what she was talking about, but I didn't really know what she was talking about. And so, this was something that we shared, that we had in common, that it's almost like a way that you see the world that was different than other people. And she also had the gift of sitting with someone and really deep listening and really sharing how she would handle something or show up in the world with something. Or she was great for going when you had advice, She'd give you this 10 stories in her life that would help you with whatever choice or decision you had in front of you. So my Nana was never far from my thoughts, and I always was bothered that she never got to go to Italy because she died. The cancer came on, and it was rather quick. So she never got the opportunity to research and find her family in Italy, although her brother, one of her brothers, Serafino, Gus, did go a few years before she died and went and met the cousins and saw the mausoleum. And right before my Nana died, I took her out to this Italian restaurant, and she took all the pictures that her brother had sent her from Italy out of her purse, and she was shuffling through them, crying. My Nana was never far from sharing her emotion, and she didn't mind. She was never, she would cry. She was never afraid to shed a tear, that kind of thing. And she was very emotional about not being able to now go to Italy and see her family. And she was very bothered by this. So in my heart in that moment in 1990, I said to myself, someday I am going to find her family and piece it together for her, because her parents came here. One came from Sicily, and the other one all she knew was he was from Bari, Italy, the province. And so she didn't really know much more than that. So her father was extremely strict when she was growing up and never really shared a lot about his life in Italy. And tragically, he died on his 71st birthday. And so, it never was something that people talked openly about. It was very secretive, I guess is the word. So fast forward, probably about 10 years ago, I started researching, you have these ancestry.coms and whatnot, and I was on this huge quest to find my Nana's cousins. Figure this out for once and all, her family. What's the deal? So I did a lot of research, and then I'd put it aside, do some research, put it aside. And then one day when I was on Ancestry, I found a draft card from my great-grandfather. And what that did for me was it allowed me to figure out that he was actually born in Terlizzi, Italy, and I never had the name of the town that he was from. So that was a big clue for me. So I all of a sudden, now I knew, my great-grandfather's family is from Terlizzi. I never even knew that. I was this was huge for me. So I'd found this World War I draft card, and fast forward, I think it was around 2014, I was listening to this podcast on health and fitness with Vinnie Tortorich and Anna Vocino. And they would talk about health and fitness, and they were very, they're very Italian about how they express themselves. So I loved it. I love listening to it. And one day they had this ad come on their podcast for this olive oil, this extra virgin olive oil. And they were raving about it, how great it was, blah, 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 blah. And it was called Villa Capelli. So I said, I love food. I love all that kind of stuff. So I said, I'm going to go find this olive oil. So I go up and Google Villa Capelli, and I find the olive oil. I'm like, great, I can order this olive oil. Well, the next thing you know, I'm noticing that not only can I buy olive oil there, but you can rent a villa there too. And then I look again, and this is all done in, of all places, Terlizzi, Italy, which is a very, very small town. This is not a huge, well-known town. So I couldn't believe it. So, you know, I thought to myself, what would that be like? So, you start to imagine if, and then I'm thinking, no, that's impossible. How am I going to do that? But I didn't, it was never far from my memory. I said, I got to figure this out. And so some time passed, and it was August 25th. I don't forget this because besides having it written down, it's also near the anniversary of my Nana, who died, I believe it was August 20th. So that time of the year is always significant. So on August 25th, 2014, was a very hot day in the town that I was in Topsfield, Massachusetts at the time. And as I was leaving my house, there was this beautiful racing pigeon outside my house. And so I said, well, I was leaving, so I'm like, oh, I just noticed it and kind of left. I came back, he's still there from my errands. And so I said, okay, I better give him something to eat. So I was trying to give him some water and some breadcrumbs. He seemed lost. And I noticed he had those bands on his feet. So the bird, oh my God, he stayed with me for about 3 days. He kept moving around my house. One day he was literally at my front door. It was the most hilarious thing. I was looking at my window and I see him literally at my front door trying to peek in the side window. It was hilarious. So after the 3rd day he was there, he left a not so friendly gift of poop on the roof of his car. So I knew his time was up. So I took matters into my own hands. So I'm going to find this pigeon's a home. I'm going to figure this out. So I look up racing pigeons online. And I found somebody who said they might be able to help me. So we managed to get, my son Thomas and I managed to get this little pigeon into a little box. And we went and met the man, Ron, and his wife. And they were an older couple. And they were super kind. And Ron looked at the pigeon. And he held him in his hand. He just flipped him up, no problem. Just looked at him because this guy he's a pigeon guy. He knows what he's doing. He does racing pigeons. And what he said is sometimes that the racing pigeons can get lost, so they let them out. They drive out to places. I'm in Massachusetts, like Ohio, and they let them out, and then they're supposed to fly home. And that's the whole thing of seeing all the birds fly home. And he said sometimes the pigeons can get lost. And he said that that pigeon that got lost, he actually thought he knew who owned the pigeon, which I thought was crazy. I mean, how could that be? I mean, it's just so crazy. So anyway, he was really grateful. He thanked us a million times. And then the next day I received this email that said, "Hello again, Beth. I want to thank you for the trouble you and your son went through to get the bird. I spoke to the owner and he wanted me to thank you too. If there were more people like you and your family, this world would be a better place for us all. I wish nothing but good health and happiness in your life." I just couldn't believe it. Not only had this pigeon gotten lost, but he found his way home. So after reading the book, after this happening, I remembered I had this really cool book. Some of you may have heard of it. It's called Animals Speak, and Animals Speak by Ted Andrews. And in that book, Ted, who has since now passed, what he does is he studies the animals, and he would talk about the spirit of the animal and what it means and all of this. So what he writes about the pigeon is this. This is from Ted Andrews. "The pigeon has a long history associated with home and with fertility. The real name of Christopher Columbus was Colombo, which is the Italian word for pigeon. It is because of this that they are often symbols for a time or a need to return to the security of home. Pigeons can teach us how to find our way back when we are lost. They help us to remember and find the love of home and home life that we have either given up or lost. Have we forgotten our basic foundations, the heritage we have had passed on to us through home and family?" End quote there. when I read that, I couldn't believe it, because here I am researching my Nana's family and cousins and all of this business. I find the villa, I find Terlizzi and all of this. And what happens? I get this pigeon. And what's the meaning? The meaning is, have you forgotten home? It's time to go home. So I'm like, if this isn't a sign from my Nana to say, get your butt over to Italy, I don't know. I mean, it was so clear. And this is how, like I was saying, when you follow your heart, you're aligned, because the door's open and there's really no effort. It's not like I went out looking for this pigeon. It literally landed in my doorstep. And the pigeon literally is telling me it's time for you to go home. So I'm taking that next step through trusting my own spirit, which is telling me, go to Italy, which is telling me it's time to go home and find your family. And so I was like, here we go. So what happened next was I knew that my Nana's brother had gone to Italy. I just don't know that side of the family. They live in a totally different part of the United States. And so they're not, it's just someone I wouldn't regularly know to ask. So I did some more research and dug out an email, sent out a few emails, and one of them did get back to me and said, oh yeah, we have an address in Terlizzi. I said, oh my God. So the next thing you know, I'm writing a letter, I'm sending it to Italy, and about 3 months went by before I heard from them, and it was because I had misinterpreted the address in some way. So the fact that they even got the letter was a godsend. And told them that I had decided to come to Italy and that I would be there in July of 2015, because I was booking the villa at Villa Capelli. And that's exactly what I did. And in 2015, my son, Thomas, and one of my sons, I have two sons, Jacob and Thomas. So my younger son, Thomas, and my parents and I went to Terlizzi, Italy to meet the cousins. And there is a part 2 to this story that's pretty fantastic. So that's like the part 1. Hey, how do we know that we're following what we're supposed to be doing? Well, things are lining up. Things are just falling into place. And there's really not a lot of effort going on, because your soul and those angels and spirit and those family members are helping guide you. All you really need to do is put out that intention, that what it is that you're looking for, and from that place of love, that place of who you truly are, and things just start to show up. It's pretty amazing. That's like the part 1 of the story. And then the part 2 is the actual trip to Italy and what happened, and the gifts that opened up again from following my heart, so to speak. Well, what happened next was we get to Italy, and we are welcomed with such excitement and open arms from not only our beautiful, amazing cousins who showed up at the airport, but also the owner of the villa, Paul Capelli. And what's fascinating is when we all got together and everyone's jumping around, hugging, and I had made a book showing who the family was and explaining, who we were and how we all tie in together as family. I also learned that the owner, Paul Capelli, had grown up in Boston, which is where I'm from. So that's even crazy. And he also had Gismondo and De Bartolo, which are the two names of significance that I was looking for in Terlizzi, in his family tree, which is wild. And when I got to the villa that we decided to rent from Paul, his aunt was staying with him, and she, it turns out, lives 10 minutes away from me in the Boston area here in Massachusetts, which is wild. Here I am in this small town looking to find my beautiful cousins, and I meet a new friend, Maria, who lives 10 minutes down the street from me. I mean, how you can't make this up. And what's also wild in this process is that before I left, in the process of Googling information about the family, I found a book that was written by Sharon DeBartolo, and she had compiled as a genealogist all of these information on the DeBartolo family, which would include Giuseppe Gismondo, who's my Nana's father, because of the lineage that she was researching. Well, in that takes a whole nother thing, but I had that book with me, and what was the gift in that book is that when I went to Italy, I didn't really have a lot of digging or research to do. Number one, my cousins were already in front of me, and number two, I had this beautiful book that this genealogist Sharon DeBartolo had written. And what's amazing here is in the process of all of this happening and all of this stepping into Terlizzi, Italy in 2015 of July, I had also, before I left, decided that I was going to go see a medium. And oddly, it took, well, not oddly, but let's just say it lined up this way, that appointment was in May, so I left for Italy in July, so that appointment was in May. I had never seen a medium before, and I went clutching the book from Sharon. Actually, it was in my purse. And during the reading, with this amazing medium, Lauren Rainbow, who's known out here, a very famous medium actually, and she brought through my Nana. And during that reading, my Nana had told me through Lauren to get off my quote-unquote ass and start using the family gift. And I knew about it, I saw it, I witnessed it, all of this stuff. And I said to myself, oh my God, I knew inside my soul what she was talking about, which is the gifts that my Nana, or the ability that my Nana talked about with me when I was a child, that she was able to see and feel and hear things beyond perception of the normal perception, right? To be able to see spirit, feel spirit. But her saying it's still in the family was fascinating, because what happened was, this woman who wrote this genealogy book, Sharon DeBartolo, when I got back home to America, I'm leaving out a few pieces, so I'm going to jump backwards first. I'm going to jump forward to coming back home. When I got back home, I sent out an essay to some family and about finding the pigeon and following my heart to Italy, and following this pigeon to Italy, so to speak. She informed me that not only is she a genealogist, that she is also my fourth cousin via my Nana's lineage, and she's also a medium. Hence, now this all makes sense of what my Nana was saying during the reading, saying that it's still in the family. And to get off my ass and start using the gift, which is actually what I do now, which is I work as a medium, helping people heal and communicate through talking with spirit. So but fast forwarding, now actually going backward now, we're still in Italy, where I'm figuring out at the villa that this Maria lives down the street from me and all of this business. The cool story that happened, and I will put these pictures in so you can see them, is a few days into the trip, we did many different activities when we were there. And that's the other cool part, is I'd never had an agenda. I left it open for Spirit to really show us what they wanted to show us when we were in Italy. And we did some amazing things, and we saw some amazing places. The cool thing I want to share with all of you, which is, I hope people are still staying with this story because this is great, is on the morning, it was July 23rd, 2015. It was a Thursday. And that day we were to meet family. And each day I had decided that I was going to journal in the morning. It's something that I loved to do. Starting after I had that message from Lauren, it was something I decided to embark on. Just intuitively said I'm going to start writing every morning. And I began my day that Thursday journaling. And I just let whatever wanted to come through me. And what it said that day was, the clouds today have much to say, and seeing is believing, and owls. So that particular day was very exciting because I was going to meet my cousins, and at that point we'd only met at the airport because they had some other engagements that they had to attain to during earlier in the week. So we had decided to get together, and when they got there to the villa, they asked if we wanted to go see the mausoleum. And all I could think of was when my Nana and I went out to eat in that Italian restaurant, and she was shuffling through those pictures. And she said, and she was so emotional, and she was saying, I'm never going to get to meet my cousins, and I'm never going to go there. So my father and I are standing there, and they're like, do you want to go to the mausoleum? And all I can see in my awareness is that. My Nana, and I said, oh, yes, absolutely. We would love to go. As I knew that that was exactly where my Nana wanted to go, and always wished that she could see. And so we get in their car and we drive over to this mausoleum. And, this might sound like who would want to go to a mausoleum, but I'm telling you, I knew my Nana wanted us to go there. I just knew it. And knowing, as what I know now from the work that I do, knowing is the language of spirit. It is the fastest way they get information to us. Yes, I just don't know how I know this. And if we miss that memo, we might get it as a vision. And if we miss that, we might hear it. And if we miss that, we might get it as a feeling. And sometimes it all kind of comes together at once. But a knowing is absolutely the language of spirit. So knowing that we had to go to this mausoleum. And I remember during that morning I had written, seeing is believing. So I'm thinking, wow, I wonder what we're going to see. So I was pretty excited. So we stopped in front of the family mausoleum, and I took several photos. And when we got there, we were walking towards that mausoleum, everything felt really heavy and dense. And I got to be honest, I felt like there was 1,000 people watching me. So it was looking back, not knowing what I was experiencing and knowing now what I was experiencing, I was definitely walking with spirit in those moments. And I knew that we could all feel it. And so I got in front of the mausoleum, and I was trying to take a picture so that I could read Familia Gismondo, the whole thing in front of the mausoleum, but I couldn't read it because the light was skewed. There was like this bright light. I was getting really aggravated because all I could read was Familia D.O., no Gismondo. So I kept trying to capture it, and I took it from this angle, that angle, and further away. And I got to be honest, I almost deleted it because I was so upset. I'm like, how can I not see the family name? This is crazy. Now, knowing what I know now, I would have had some humor with this and stepped back into like a place of neutrality and not gotten frustrated and said, oh my God, like Spirit's got a huge message right now. So anyway, thank God I didn't delete anything, as you will see when I show this video. After we visited, so we took those pictures, and then we saw a few more places in the cemetery. We went back to the car, then we went back to the villa to prepare for dinner. I also forgot to mention that when we got to the villa, I heard owls in the trees. And I couldn't believe, first of all, that I was hearing owls, because, that's so random. But I said to my cousin Daniela, I said, what is that? Is that owls? And then I had a picture, because the English is a little sketchy with everybody. In my Italian, I don't speak Italian, so unfortunately. So I had a picture on my phone as a bird photographer. I love nature photographer. I have a picture on my phone of an owl. And I show Daniela and I say, owl. She goes, yes, owls. And I said, oh my God. So I'm thinking of my journal, seeing is believing, but all I saw was this mass of white light. And I'm thinking, I ain't seeing nothing. What is this, right? So I kind of was frustrated. And when we left, the cemetery, my heart was really full. We got back in the car. I was with my family. They went back and prepared this amazing dinner. The panzerotti that are very like traditional food, and we had it was just an amazing evening that I'll never forget. And this is where it kind of gets interesting, because when I also did a podcast when I was in Italy with Paul, and we talked about my trip and how I found my cousins and everything. And so when I got home, I was telling, I've sent out the podcast to everyone. I sent out my essay about following the pigeon to Italy. And my now I know my fourth cousin, Sharon DiBartolo, sends me, this email explaining not only is she a genealogist, but she's a medium. And I'm like, oh my God. She says, let's do a reading and see what Nana says about your trip to Italy. So I'm back in America, and Sharon and I are on the phone. She's in Utah and I'm in Boston, Massachusetts, and we do this reading. And during the reading, Sharon says, Nana said you missed it. You need to go back through your pictures and review your images for Italy. So I'm saying, okay, I can do that. Oh my God, I thought I have 1,000 pictures from Italy. So I decided to embark on this, and I start going through all the pictures, and I get to the mausoleum, and I'm staring at it, and all of a sudden, all the smoke detectors in my house go off. And I'm like, in the midst of this chaos, I'm trying to read this Gismondo. I'm looking at this mausoleum, and the smoke detectors are going off now, to the point where they were so loud that my boys came running into my office where I have my computer and my photography. And they're like, Mom, what's going on? What's going on? And then in that moment, I go, oh my God, how did I miss it? Within the light that was cast upon the mausoleum, you can absolutely see the side profile of a woman holding a bouquet of flowers. And to me, it looks exactly like my Nana's wedding picture. And I almost fell out of my chair. I said, how did I miss it? How did I miss it? Not only when I was in Italy, but when I looked at this picture before. How did I miss it? Well, who cares? Because now I see it, right? And I can share this with whoever wants to hear it. And so I was so completely excited. So my first thought was, I got to email my cousin Sharon and tell her, oh my God, Nana came through big time, because this is so cool. Wait till I share with you this image of her. We call it Lady in Light on the mausoleum. And since then, since that experience, I've come to know in symbols from the spirit world in a deeper way. And one of the things I would love to share with you is that when you get a sign, there's usually 5 or 6 more messages. It's never just like one thing. I'm just throwing you a dime. Yeah, but look at the date of the dime. Does the number 10 mean anything to you? Does 1/0 mean anything to you? There's 1,000, things that you can look at besides I just found a dime or something like that. Well, the same here with the mausoleum. Here's what I realized. A few things. The Lady in Light resembles my Nana's wedding picture, 100%. And I can show you that in the video. Also, if you notice, the year 1990 is highlighted in the image. 1990 is the year my Nana passed away. In Italian, on the mausoleum, it reads, Per lei tante luce nel cielo, which translates in English, for her, lots of light in the sky. Well, if you look at the lady, because that's exactly that lady in the light in the mausoleum, which I believe she's trying to say to the world. See, it's not just one thing, it's and both. It's all inclusive, these messages. She's also saying that we are not in the mausoleum. We are outside. We are light. We are spirit, and we are free. Another message she's saying, if you pay attention to this picture, her hands are crossed at her heart, which to me symbolizes how the heart is the gateway to spirit. What do I mean by that? Well, following my heart is what got me to Italy. And it wasn't known to me in that moment of seeing the pigeon at my door that I would be going to Terlizzi. No. All I knew in that moment was then to follow my heart, and the next step would be given. Follow my heart, and the next step would be given. Follow my heart, and the next step would be given. And now when I look back at that whole experience, I can say, wow, look at how each step, like breadcrumbs, like the breadcrumbs that I left the pigeon, little breadcrumbs are left for us to the next step. But it's only until we've had a few of these breadcrumbs that we realize, oh wow, look at how they're connected. But how do you know you're in the next step? Because everything's lining up. There's no resistance to it. You're just moving in the flow of the next step. You're moving in the river of spirit. You're moving in the flow and the experience of following the divine direction that's given to us. All of these experiences really are about what is really the crux of all of this here is following your heart and knowing that you are in that next step. And when sometimes we're at that place when we're in resistance, know that all we need to do is one small thing towards that next step. We don't have to know, oh, we're going to be at a villa or we're going to be at a mausoleum in a year. No, I just needed to know one small thing to do. And maybe that one small thing was to give the pigeon some breadcrumbs. It wasn't even to find him a home yet, right? It's all one tiny step, one tiny step, one tiny step. And all of those tiny steps then become the story over time when we turn around and look at it. And it is following our heart that opens the door to these little next steps. So it's my hope that this story helps inspire you to know that you're in alignment, to know your next step, to know that you are exactly where you're supposed to be, because that's how it works. And, when we're in resistance to knowing or getting impatient, to just put it out there to your loved ones in spirit to help guide you to your next step. And come from that place of loving intention when you do. And just say, help me to understand or to know my next step. You don't need to know the whole thing. You don't need to know the whole story. You just need to know what tiny next step you need to do next. And it's in the faith of that we begin to experience being in our true awareness of being in the awareness of spirit and surrendering to what comes next and surrendering to the moment and not deciding how it should look, but instead surrendering. I could have never in a million years come up with this story. I thought it would be impossible to find my cousins, but putting that loving intention out there that this is what I needed, the next step was presented. The miracle was presented, because to me this was a miracle. All of these things are miracles, and no one's denied this gift. We are all allowed and given this gift. All we have to do is ask for the next small step in finding our way in this world, and it will be shown to us. That doorway will be given. It'll be opened. And it is my hope that this story inspires you in your own journey, and that when you feel resistance, just ask your loved ones in spirit, your angels, your guides, to enlighten your path to your next step. And know that your will and your desire is what will carry you in those times of resistance. It is your will. It was my will and that love that I had for my Nana that, I don't want to say electrified everything or magnified it, or I would say was the power that drove. It was that love for her that drove the power. It drove my will to want to see and meet my cousins, and have that all line up. So I hope this was enjoyable, inspirational, and in some way helps you to recognize when you are in a place of needing to know your next step and finding purpose, that it's that one small step that makes all the difference in the world. And to congratulate yourself, and when you do get further down the road, just pause for a moment and say, wow, look what we've done here. Look at how far I've come. Because sometimes we get caught up in, oh, my next step isn't here. Well, turn around and really look at how far you've come, because you can really start to appreciate yourself and your soul's journey, which is, thanking your soul for this amazing journey that you're on, and continuing to appreciate yourself and the steps you've done so far and will continue to take, and loving yourself, loving the process, and having that will to do the next thing, which encourages the wellness of you and those you love. And may this inspire you, and may this share help guide you in some way and lift you and help you to recognize when your family and loved ones are helping you along the way. Namaste. For more information about my work and what I have to offer, please visit my website, elizabethcoughlin.com, where you can subscribe to my Facebook and YouTube channels and stay in touch for more spirit shares. Thank you so much. I truly appreciate it.